right.
One of those red lights that shows on air.
That would be nice.
We're good.
We're good.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, Charlie.
Hi. Well, I'm going to get through my things pretty quickly here. One is a note that, so Healthy Acadia submitted some grants to, or funding to the state, and they were not budgeted quite as high as they were hoping to be. The delta's about 120,000 short of what they need to operate the warming shelter throughout the year consistently. So they're having to cut about, in order to get to their funding level as is, they need to cut daytime weekend service for the warming shelter during the winter, and potentially additional hours during the weekday, or to actually minimize the amount of people that could be in there, because they're not going to have the staff for it. So they need $87,000 for the Monday through Friday, a navigator, to help continuously operate that shelter to what the need would be, and then another $37,000 for the weekend shifts to be able to be done during the day. I'm talking to them to get a little bit more of a formal plan for this, and so they're wondering if the city can kind of cover the delta, essentially. It's important, I think, for a few reasons. One is talking to Tina, our general assistance director, our social services director, is this, without that shelter and those staffers helping there, it's gonna put enormous pressures on her and the city in new ways, ways that are not necessarily predictable. It's interesting, Healthy Acadia, they didn't come with a budget request for this type of the shelter or anything like that. We did fund the Emmaus Homeless to a certain amount, but by far, Tina works with Healthy Acadia and that group on a daily basis in the wintertime with, essentially it's a team effort and I know Tina and myself are worried about this. So when that's not open on the weekends during the daytime, those folks are going to, they want to go somewhere inside where it's warm. So they're going to potentially try to go to the Hannafords or other places. There's just not that many places in Ellsworth where the mall, the Mill Mall, there's some common areas, but these are places where they're going to potentially be kicked out too at times. So, I'm kind of looking to, the finance committee and that's a pretty big undesignated spending request to put on the city. There's potentially maybe other private donation avenues we could look into, other pieces, but we're kind of on the clock too, because they need to train this person for the coming winter and budget for that. So I think we'll have a more full presentation later on, do we need to add this to the October meeting as a request and really kick the tires in this piece. But I would love your all's thoughts on if you think that's appropriate to bring this forward to the city, and any other ideas. And we could also go back to the state. Tina and I actually had a meeting with the state 3 months ago where they said they had additional surplus funds from the previous budget cycle, and how could we use them? Well, you could help us reimburse us for general assistance more. That's double what we've previously spent. We might go triple this year. We're already seeing these upticks. So it kind of surprised us that they had this funding and it didn't. So surplus from last year maybe, but they didn't get fully funded for this year. I'm looking at other communities that did get their full funding and what was the difference and why we didn't get it here. So there might be kind of let's go back to the state too and say what's going on? Why aren't we getting or why isn't Healthy Acadia what's really important? This is what they're going to have to do because they didn't get that funding. There could be a public press, push on this, on what this lack of funding is doing, and it's not just the city or the taxpayer of Ellsworth to cover Hancock and Washington County. Just another thing as a service center that we're putting on the 9,000 taxpayers that are here. I don't like that. Those are not. So potentially other grant funding, but like I said, we're on the clock. And we will be the ones that are affected by it, not just the people that won't have access to that shelter, but the staff that are going to have to deal with the kind of ripple effect of that. So, so that's a big thing, more to come. And Tammy and others, if you've got ideas, ping me and let me know. And as I start putting together a plan as to how to help Healthy Acadia and move forward to get this piece. So I'll keep you updated.
I have a comment about that, if I may, but a question first. What do you know about this? Don't you sit on Acadia? board?
Yeah, I'm on the board, and this is the first I've heard of.
Okay. Well, my question or comment is I see a lot of housing vouchers coming out of City Hall. And I'm understanding that the state reimburses 70% of that. Is there, all of these people that are asking, if these people are homeless, why aren't we putting them to work over there? If they have no job and they need, why is it that the city taxpayer, Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth, has to pay for that? Why can't these people that need the shelter do the work?
Yeah.
And maybe I'm crazy here, but boy, Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth are struggling to heat their homes. And the people that are looking for free services, let's put them to work. I'm sure there needs to be a lot of oversight, and maybe there's problems that come with that, but it's just a question.
Yeah, let me talk to Tina. There's, about the legality of a work requirement. It could be something more informal too, on just, hey, I know our police department's doing some interesting things on sort of helping, because work is a good thing for folks. And if you can, but these people are also in crisis, and while that's for us at this table, that's obviously core for there's people that it's not something that they're in a position to do right now, and I wouldn't want to make that it's housing for work to be in a warming shelter. I have trepidations about that too, but at the same time, if there are creative ways to kind of help this population, they are people that are in difficult circumstances, and they may want to if we have some city hall projects that may not be a requirement, but
I'm not saying city hall projects, I'm saying if they need to close that shelter because of funding, why can't some of the people using the shelter be doing the work that they're looking for us to fund? I'm not saying the city needs to be involved in that. I'm saying that you have an entity coming to the city asking for money when you've got people without jobs using the service. What's wrong with putting them to work over there and keeping us out of it?
The type of work, Steve, is, it's a specialized role. You're overseeing folks in crisis. So you can't just say, you do this job. Do you have any jobs available for these folks to work?
If they'd like to work, certainly.
All right, well, why don't we get a
Certainly.
list and we'll have them sign it up and they'll come submit applications to your business.
They certainly, if people want to work. I got a guy from the homeless shelter that's been with me 9 years. Great guy. But I've also had 9 that didn't last 2 weeks. But when you have an entity coming to the city and asking for Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth to contribute, I think we need to look within their own circle before we look to Mr. and Mrs. Ellsworth.
yeah,
I'll leave it at that.
Noted, and I'll talk to the team. I know there's a couple other organizations that are doing this work here that we've been having conversations with our police department about potentially co-locating services for some of these navigators. This is the amount of work these folks are doing in the most incredibly difficult circumstances is a growing piece. And they actually have their own limited staffing challenges, as a lot of people do around here. But let me.
I have compassion for them, but there's no question. Some of them are living in my sheds.
Yeah.
It's fine with me. If they need shelter, I'm cool with that.
And that might be a
I
piece of
don't-
this. Could be, hey, we could do better on offering people work where there's employers that might want to help during the winter time and help these folks, not just, all right, we need more funding for this piece. That's it all alone. There might be more. And I know John Stein is probably a great person to talk to about this too.
To be clear, what's their total ask of the city?
It's 120 odd thousand, or 130 odd thousand. Sorry, I have the
that they're asking of the city.
Yeah, or that's the shortfall. And I shouldn't say this is what we'd like, this wasn't a budget request they were hoping to make. And there are pieces on when you're so reliant on grant funding, and this happens, this is why you shouldn't be so reliant on grant funding for pieces like this. You should have, and it's all nonprofits, there's a piece of that too, that you leave yourself open. And I've talked to Heart of Ellsworth about this too, and their grant funding piece, and it's just if you get too heavy on grants, and something like this happens, then this is where you're at. You don't have this, the backups to kind of make it happen, so.
I just want to note on that, Charlie, that Healthy Acadia is predominantly grant funded because the way the state operates is we don't have a public health agency that does this work at the state level. The state basically designates nonprofits to do this work.
Oh, interesting.
Most states actually have a public health entity to do. Healthy Acadia identifies a problem of increasing homelessness in this area and went out and got funding to do this work for the warming shelter. Were it not for them, we wouldn't have it, period. And they're not, I don't know what the city provides to Healthy Acadia to do this work the last few years, if anything. And yeah, funding comes and goes. I think I want to just note that the alternative, if them not having it, is we don't have it. So Healthy Acadia went to the state, got the funding, or from the feds, and provides a service. They lose the funding, the service goes away. It's not as if, I don't think Healthy Acadia here coming and asking for, saying, hey, city, here's the situation, can you help us?
Yeah.
Should be demonized in any way. Otherwise, the service doesn't exist. That's just the long short of it. So I think we can talk all we want about, well, where, this is inappropriate. I'm sure they're asking for other money from other sources, and I'm sure they are seeing what they can do, but ultimately, if they don't have the funding, they can't provide the service and it goes away. So if the city doesn't want to do it, that's the city's, if we don't want to fund it, that's our decision, but then we don't have the service. So I don't want to demonize Healthy Acadia for a funding shortfall, which they have no control over.
I think we should just put a lot of pressure on the state for it. As you were saying, they don't have the services, they give it to, the nonprofits, then they should definitely be helping, so.
Yeah.
Put some pressure on the state.
Yeah, it's,
Where about the county? This is a county-wide issue. Is the
Oh, yeah.
county willing to step up and provide?
could ping them at the ARPA. I don't know if their ARPA has been spent. This is things on the result of the pandemic. In some ways this fits into that category. I don't know if, it is a multi-layered service. And I get your point, Patrick. You're right. There's a level of this was fee-for-service from the state. The state's cut this. The service is down. It's not necessarily Healthy Acadia's
Yeah.
to keep fully flush so they can fund these things if they go down. They put this together. But it's a liability too. And when you put together a service like this, that really it will become full-time, and it has to be. And if it is reliant on an intermittent funding source with the city essentially as a backstop, that's, we gotta figure that out. If we want the city to be the backstop, or if this is the state and we gotta talk publicly about it and really push the state to kind of make the shortfall because the service isn't there and they don't have a public health program, like you said, that this is the reason they do it this way and they need to fund it. And if not, but at the end of the line, it's going to be us, the staff, and the Healthy Acadia folks that are going to have to deal, and the citizens of Ellsworth that are going to have to deal with this warming shelter not having that services. So more to come. I don't want to. I got to get more plans together, address these issues better, have the representatives of these organizations and Tina as well, who can answer these questions infinitely better than I can. So we have a better idea of what the situation is.
Charlie,
Yep.
what account would this come out of?
It's undesignated fund spending. It's not of any account. We haven't budgeted for it.
17% increase in last year's taxes, a 10+% increase in this year's taxes, and now you want another $125,000 from the citizens? Where's the annual? Why can't you say, no, we don't have it? The budget has been done. And now they come and they want $1.25 after the budget has been passed. Where were they last spring? when the meetings were being held? And have they asked any other communities in Hancock County for money? Why just Ellsworth?
That's a good point. I like the idea of other communities in Hancock and Washington County.
Yeah, that could be to ask some other cities and towns to potentially pitch in, so it would be a, you know, yeah, it's why we're discussing it here. It's undesignated fund spending. There's no, you know, even if it was previously accounted for, something of this nature, I would come to you all on, but pushing it back to the state, seeing if other cities and towns would want to come together in a joint funding piece. Could definitely see that. Or, like you said, Patrick, we have to, at some point, maybe say no. Or like you said, Mark, the answer might be, we can't do this. It's not something that's within our budgetary ability at this point. So, the state's already done that, essentially. They've said no, so. But the other piece of it is just human, you know, the human cost of that. We can say that, but there's a real human cost to the people that are using those facilities, to the city of Ellsworth, to others, that, you know, we have to take into account, that saying no will have a real local cost, a real human cost too.
I had budgeted a generator for my house to keep my family safe. Money didn't come in, so I can't do it. Can I have 10,000, please? God, I'm idiots.
Yeah, well, that's the, you know, tough conversation. There'll be more on it, and we'll move forward as we always do, and figure out a solution and bring council together and the community and teams together to figure out the best way forward in a very tough situation. So that nobody here wanted to talk about or wanted to have to deal with. And much more small news. There's a request for a horse sign, and things I'm definitely going to probably say, or not definitely, I think we should say no to, but there's a horse, I guess, on that keeps going back and forth on one of the roads, and that's being honked at pretty consistently. There's a request to put up like an actual sign that says like horse caution. I'm not quite sure that'll solve the problem.
Whose horse is it?
I don't know their name specifically offhand, but it came to our public works team and sort of a request. You know, we're looking at $500 to $600 for a, you know, horse warning sign. I wanted to say no, but just wanted to talk to the council about it. Okay, I'm not hearing a lot of support, so.
No.
Are they
Only if it says
riding?
quit horsing around.
I think we might do some social media posts on, you know, there's been reports, you know, there's a horse up here, please don't honk at the horse when you see it.
Are they riding the horse, or is that just like?
I think they're walking it down like one of these roads, and then they have to access it. There's trails that the
So
horses.
the horse is with a human?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not just a wandering horse.
The wild Mustangs of
We have
Ellsworth.
wild Mustangs here.
So I think I'm going to say no to that request, and then we'll do a social media post just to warn.
The person making the request of the city, are they the person that owns the horse? Okay. Is there any problem with giving them permission to erect a sign at their own cost?
Which road is it? Is it a city road or is it a state road?
It's a city road.
Okay.
So it's within our, and we talked about this, like, yeah, the signage is within our purview, essentially, which I think where you're getting to, Tammy. Like, if we wouldn't have to do DOT approval,
That was my next question. So if you live on a private road, you have to pay for your own private sign, you know, your road sign. So I think it would, if they want that and we're gonna allow it, then they would have to pay for it.
all right, let's just say we,
But, yeah.
Yeah,
that's-
why could we not, let's not squash the idea. Let's support the idea with the horse owners' funds.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or they can talk to your community. If you guys can pay for the sign, we're not going to put it in the full taxpayer role, but I don't think we'd have a problem with the sign per se.
Is there a permit process that they would have to go through?
It's a good question. We could open up a little bit of a,
We have a sign ordinance, but, I mean, ultimately, if they're willing to pay for the sign, I think we can make it work for
Yeah.
them. We don't want to look
Support
at
it.
that gift horse in the mouth.
Yeah.
I knew something like that was going on.
Well, we don't want a horse accident For sure, and if they want to put a sign up, I want to be the city that supports them, helps them, maybe
Yeah.
even installs it for them.
That's
Yeah.
what I was thinking,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, if they pay for it.
Right, I mean, something
Yeah.
along
And
those
the
lines.
team's on, we have application process and review why, and what we'd want to do for it. Hey. We've already talked about, well, we'll do it again. We'll do another round, yeah.
Thank you. That was a reminder.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, sometimes I tell people, they're like, what's the job like? I was like, it's a really interesting mix of like the West Wing and Parks and Recreation. Like sometimes it's super serious and we're talking about homelessness and the crisis and systemic problems in the country and how we're gonna at the very local level deal with them and help people. And then sometimes we're talking about horse signs, and which also have its own
All those
level.
opposed, say nay.
Oh,
Quit horsing around.
Good morning, everybody.
Oh,
good morning, Michael.
You wanna talk about the horse signs? Is that why you're here?
No.
You want me to wait, Mike?
Yeah,
Okay.
we have a potentially big problem.
Oh,
Okay.
do you need me out of there right now?
They
or-
can all hear about it, because they're gonna know about it anyway. Coming down over Bridge Hill, at the stop sign of the Y.
Well, let me.
Is this a
let's-
finance problem?
No,
All right, let me talk, I'll talk to you, I'm gonna send it over to Nate to
Okay,
talk
sorry.
about the budget. And I'm gonna handle another public works issue, and I'll report back to council as needed. But Nate, why don't you worry on, or start the budget piece, which is important too, so,
Thanks, Jordan.
thanks.
Happy Friday.
Yep.
I'll try to speak up, I'm a little hoarse. But, all right, I'm done.
It's
It's Big Finance Friday, I'm trying to have fun.
No, it's Freaky Friday.
Freaky. It
Friday
is
the 13th.
Friday the 13th. So obviously I have it on the big board there, the finances, which obviously the council, you were able to pull up. So I won't spend a lot of time on the board. I did print out the accounts where we sit at compared to the budget for all the accounts. I passed those out, and I'll probably have this obviously posted online for residents if they want to see it. I did do a brief little outline, a little overview. I would love to spend a little bit more time on it, but obviously the budget summary, which is on the top of the page one, the total budget for the fiscal year, and then the year-to-date actual and the variance. Just looking at the income and expenses compared to last year, and this is from July through the end of August. Income, now I pulled all tax anticipation note draws and payments out, because I didn't feel like those should be included. So if you look at the income compared to last year, we're down 19.21%. If I had included the TAN, obviously we're over 34%. Expense change was 0.39% more compared to last year. Since this is obviously my first 6 months being here, I don't know how to compare that to previous years before. I can say that it looks like the month of September currently looks better than the month of September last year. So that's a good sign, but I just wanted to give you guys a little heads
What
up.
do you mean by better, like as far as?
Like income-wise,
Income-wise.
income-wise looks better, just through the, obviously, we're only 13 days in, but just because obviously when I pulled the numbers, to see the negative 19% is not a good thing. Just to give you a brief overview of the debt compared to last year.
Could we stop you right there just
You
for
can
1
do whatever you
second?
need to do.
This income change of 19.21% year-to-date last year, remind me if the city is talking about a cash basis or an accrual basis?
This is just cash basis.
Okay, thank you.
This is cash basis, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just throw something in here? It
You can do whatever you
may
want.
be-
You or Tammy.
It may be because things weren't being recorded correctly in 2024, September of 2023. So you may see some variances for a couple of years because things weren't being,
I will say that these numbers were pulled directly from the bank. So
okay.
I literally took incomes and expenses directly, debits and credits directly from the bank site. I didn't want to use the financial program just for that reason. So I believe these numbers are pretty accurate.
You said you took out grant money and,
I didn't take out grant money, I just pulled tax anticipation note. So like, for instance, we pulled 2 million earlier this fiscal year. I didn't include that because obviously that would show our income's gone up 34%.
Right.
I don't want to show that because that's, and last year we didn't pull from the TAN at all.
I just didn't want you to get concerned, because if tax bills went out a little earlier last year, you're gonna get more
Yeah,
cash. in
well,
the
and that's what
beginning of the
that's
year,
why,
and so-
and that's why I mentioned September being above, because
Yeah, I think you'll even out by the
Yeah.
end of September.
yeah, that's why, I'm not trying to cause a stir, I'm just trying to give you
Okay.
guys real numbers.
All right,
But-
thank you.
Yeah. And then just briefly, I just put on there the debt compared to last year of what we owe for the whole year. This includes all wastewater, water debts. Last year was 1.94. This year we're at 1.86. So just so you guys are aware of where we sit debt-wise for the year. Like I said, this shows all the revenue and expense accounts. The revenues are the shaded ones, if you're wondering why some are shaded and some are not, just so you can identify which ones, anything that has a 4 at the front is a revenue account, anything that's 5 is expenses. But I figure that way it's a little easier to see, because it doesn't differentiate on there what's revenue, what's expenses. Like I said, this will be, I'll make sure this is posted online so everyone can see it.
Can we get in there now? Because when I clicked on that thing, it just kind of said, have you guys been able to click on to this piece here?
No.
Neither
It
have
didn't work? I'll get with IT Nate and see why that is.
I. Have you
I
been
differentiate.
able to log in?
Otherwise,
Oh, okay.
otherwise it sounds like I'm talking in third person, but yeah. Yeah, the screen, unfortunately, when you show it on the big screen, there should be a line there showing, where we're at in the current fiscal year. Obviously, greens, yellows, what it's projected and what's the budget. So for instance, the police department, if they were to keep the numbers the way they're going right now, they're projected to be at 1.732, their budget is 2.3, so obviously that's green, that's good. Assessing, 123, budget 140, right now they're at 30, so that's good. So that's kind of what that shows, and like I said, if you actually pulled this on your computer, you could actually see a line to say, okay, it's a little bit over, it's a little bit under, and you can actually click the accounts and see, you can see the individual revenue expense accounts in there once it opens up. But yeah, so yeah,
While we're talking about debt,
let's talk about that.
the previous two finance directors has provided me with this, but I would request that of you as well, since the numbers have all been shaken apart. My question would be this, is the amount of debt left on the Brian E. Moore School Community Center. The last 2 times I have asked, I have gotten a number, but I've never gotten real documents. I don't need documents. I just want to make sure that I'm getting good information.
Okay.
Now that you've shaken out numbers, I would like to get a little picture of the debt on the Brian E. Moore School. And that's because this 6-month extension has been given. And the last 2 times that I have requested this information, I have gotten a little sticky note, which is fine, okay, saying what the payment was. And the payment was $27,000 a month for debt service on that building until 2040. And it was a sliding scale. It looked like as it went on, it went down, and I believe out around 2040, it was gonna be 19,000.
Okay.
And I would love to see what the numbers are, in your opinion, after you folks have shaken this thing up and looked to see where we're at. I would love to have that information, not just for, just to know, but we're talking, it looks like we gave them a 6-month extension, and that's gonna come before the council at some point. And I think it's important that we know those numbers. And what does this cost us? And $27,000 a month is quite a number for the debt service on that building. And maybe I haven't been given good numbers, but I've been given it by two different finance
Yeah.
directors. And again, I've gotten a sticky note. I haven't gotten anything that's pretty.
I think an amortization schedule.
That's what I was, that's literally what I was gonna pull.
Yeah.
I can pull that and give it to you Monday night if that works for you.
That's beautiful. My understanding is it was part of another, one finance director told me it was part of another.
It is.
Bond.
Yeah.
Mhm, yeah.
So perhaps the delineation of that may be off a little bit, if you will, maybe, but.
But like Tammy
something
said,
to-
I can pull an amortization schedule, no
And,
problem.
yeah, there should be broken down
It is, yeah.
between each of those projects that made up the entire bond.
Yeah.
And if I pull it today, I'll probably email it to you, but I can bring a hard copy on Monday.
Well, look, I'm 60 years old and I've lived my whole life without it. I can get by a few days, but,
You don't look a day over 59.
Jeez.
but thank you.
Yeah, no
Thank you
problem.
very much.
Can I, make
Yeah.
a question, just to clarify? So for this, the printout here, you said the stuff that's shaded is revenue?
Yeah,
Okay, and then I'm looking at the homestead revenue. That's property tax revenue from anyone that claims a homestead exemption?
yes,
Okay, and then it says actual and year-to-date, so we've actually brought in more than
that was budgeted. Mhm.
that was budgeted, okay.
Yay.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's, so I'm just figuring out how to read
Yeah,
this.
no, that's why, yeah, it's
All right, great, thank you for.
a lot of information. I try to squeeze it in as
Yeah,
many
so but then
pages as
for like
possible.
state revenue sharing, we had budgeted 1.8 million, but we only have 389,000. So that could is that part of the change in like the amount of money we have, our income? Would that account for the part of the income, or am I, at least not?
Oh,
Please educate me.
I don't know how the state revenue share, like, don't we get more
We
throughout the
just
year?
get one payment a month from the state of
Yeah.
Maine. So we budget that amount because that's what they estimated for us.
Yeah.
And so we get, and it's very random numbers.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And
It's-
they say, it's not like, okay, divide that by 12, that 1.8. It's just, okay, what were the sales for the state of Maine, and that's what I send it to.
Okay, but all this money is going into the bank account that you did this?
Mhm, yes.
So, I guess my question is, because we budgeted a lot more, we anticipated more, and we got less, but you're saying that's not part of the, okay. But we could have had a lot more last year at this point,
Exactly,
in
yeah.
that account. So
Yep.
this variance that you're talking about, where we're down, income is down 19.21%, it's just in part, has to do with when money that we know is coming comes in.
And that's where I was talking to the gentleman in the audience was, my goal is in the future, like I said, I kind of got this together at 6:30 last night, but my goal in the future is to have, this is where we're at right now, but this is where we're at last year, like,
Yeah.
previous year to now.
You're getting-
This is a starting point, basically. I like to get to a point where it's like, all right, here's where we are to the budget, here's where we were last year to the budget, so that way you can, like I said, you can look at that state revenue sharing and be like, oh, well, last year we got a 600,000 at this point instead of 3. That's-
Yeah, and I think in all fairness to you, this is all new to you
Yeah.
as far as what comes in when, so it's that current year versus previous year number, while it is what it is, the reasons behind it could be myriad, and you only with time being here and seeing how these things come in, are you going to be able to have a better explanation of what that number means?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And when everything's built in the software, it's like you can do it right now on revenue, on like graphs and charts, and see how it's coming in. Next year we'll be able to marry those two things together.
Yeah.
So you'll be
And
able to see that.
that's what my goal is, because right now I'm almost through September as far as looking at last year and getting all the numbers in correctly in Cassell. So we're working our way through, but yeah, once we get all those accurate numbers, it's gonna be great to pull graphs and see things more visually than just, here's 10 pieces of paper, just try to decipher it and figure it out.
No, I just,
Yeah.
this is really helpful, but the whole point is it's new to all of us. This kind
Yeah.
of new process we're doing, so you can have these numbers, but actually figuring
So-
out what those numbers means is gonna take time.
Exactly, yeah, there's only a few people that can look at it and be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and then seeing spending and revenues and how they go through the year, like, you know, we're looking at previous month for now, that doesn't include any tax revenue. You know, this next month, we will see some, so revenues were this, that is, so this was in taxes, this was in state reimbursement, this was this, that is X percent more or less than we received by this time of year, like from last year, as a percent of the total budget. Because that's the other thing, if the budgets change, the total amount in versus previous years might be different, and that might not trigger alarm one way or the other, depending on, you know, how much spending we're supposed to be doing by that time.
What's the correct date on this budget, as of when?
It's supposed to be August 30th, not 31st, not September 30th.
Oh, so this should be
Yeah,
31.
yeah, my apologies on
Okay.
that. Yep.
Is there any way you can like sum the year-to-date for each department?
I can, yeah. You want me to do it right now? Get my calculator out? But yeah, I can.
He
Well,
needs
he's
the
full of it,
weekend.
isn't he? Yeah.
He needs the weekend.
And you can go into this. and
It's
see
BFF.
The year-to-date by department,
Yeah.
we were doing that.
I guess, I don't know if you're getting to it, I guess the question I have is there, from what you can extrapolate, are there any highlights as far as what this data is showing us, or is it still kind of too early to really?
I feel like it's too early, at least for me anyway, just being new to the city and everything. But I think throughout the course of the next month or two, I think it'll definitely, signs will be there. And like I said, once we get the 24 stuff figured out, I think we'll definitely be able to see the trends compared to this year, compared to last year. Having 3 months of data with some tax collections and stuff like revenue and stuff like that will definitely help. So we can see where we're at compared to last year. So this is a starting point. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Also, I think, this is more information than I've seen in 3 years that I've been here. And I realize that anytime you give us more information, it's going to bombard you with more questions. But I just want to qualify that in the fact that, please, I think you're going to get bombarded with questions, and the only reason that you're getting these questions is because this is more information than I have ever seen.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful, and I couldn't be more thankful for it, and please don't, I think you're going to get a lot of questions, but please understand those questions are coming from, I have never seen this. And this is just beautiful
Yeah.
work in my estimation. It is absolutely beautiful work. And there's gonna be tweaking and
Yeah.
all throughout the whole year.
Yeah.
There's gonna be requests. And come next September, when this process starts again, everyone's gonna have a much better understanding of what we're seeing. And the tweaks would come along through the process. And I have one little tiny question, and in the revenue, you have 37,145 of solar credits. There must be an expense to that somewhere in this, or is there not? Is that the net amount, or is that the?
Those are the
gross
solar credits we got through Paymode, correct?
On
We're
here?
buying them
Yeah.
somewhere.
That's the renewable energy.
Renewable energy.
Right, but we're buying those credits someplace. Is that in here? You follow me?
Well, it offsets.
You
your-
mean
Yeah,
for the
that's
what-
person?
Energy
Yeah, it
costs,
offsets
right?
it. Yeah, it offsets our energy. So
Yeah.
where you see
So-
the solar credit here, that's not the credits that we're buying.
So you're not,
No, that's the revenue.
Yeah.
But somewhere there's a cost to that. Is that not in here, or is that a net?
it's not, you're not actually seeing it, it's what it's doing is lowering the energy cost, the electric
Reverse-
yeah,
reverse
the
bill,
reverse
yeah.
bill.
Yeah, so.
Right, but somewhere you're paying for that.
No, somebody else, well, we were originally trying to, maybe this will help.
In my head.
Yeah.
We were originally trying to get, so they built a new hydro dam somewhere in a piece of Maine. I talked to the company that built that and how they purchased it, and part of their agreements is they have to offload the additional credits that they generate to municipalities and nonprofits, et cetera. And so they're basically requesting, do we have any surplus credits that they could give us? Like, it's like this, they're basically gonna give us free, like, reductions in our energy bills that would, as part of that program. So we sign up for that program, it's free. They built the dam, they're putting all this hydro on the market. Those credits for that need to basically live in different entities to take advantage. So they need to offload those credits to governments, but we looked into it with Ashley and others, and we're already at our max on receiving those credits through the solar piece. So we can't take any more credit for our accounts, but there's no cost to us, we just get the money back.
Okay, what I'm talking about is when this whole thing started with the solar in Ellsworth, okay? There was a cost of buying credits, and you would get 15% more than your cost deduction in your bill.
27%,
So
27%.
I thought it, okay, well, I don't think it came out to 27, that was what was
15%
sold.
residential. We signed the contract for,
Right.
4 or 5 years ago, and it's 27%.
That was the prediction, I don't think that was the actual. And what I'm getting at is, somewhere we're paying, we had, when this whole thing started, we had to buy credits. And then you received 15, well, all right, let's use his number, 26% discount on your bill, but we only paid for 85% of that discount. That's how it started. Is that a fair analysis?
If you aren't getting the 27% or 26, whatever, one or the other, if you aren't getting that number, then somebody's gonna go back and say, look, in the contract, this is the number. It isn't 15%. 15% is the number they throw up for residential.
But get rid of the numbers for a second. The process, aren't we paying, we had to buy credits in order to get a bigger credit on our utility bill.
We agreed to buy on Mariahville Road, I believe the one on the right, we buy all of the power from there. The one on the left, is 40 or 50%. And the rest is sold elsewhere to, bought by somebody else. We pay our electric bill, the going rate, whatever it is. And then we get that credit applied to the bill. And whether it's monthly, whether it's quarterly, I don't recall.
it's monthly. So what happens is Mariahville and Industrial will bill us monthly. We pay them the bill monthly of whatever the percentage is of the credits of the
Okay,
bill.
there's your expense right there.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that's,
Yeah,
and it's
that's what I'm
broken
getting at.
out, yeah, and it's broken out in the power lines of each department. So if you look at the departments broken down, you'll see a power line. We have some for streetlights, we have some, the PD is going on one of them. Who else is on them? There's a
There's a
bunch
ton
of
of
different
them.
things,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's all
Yeah.
broken out into the different departments under their power line, and that's where we bill out the solar credits.
So this
the
$37,000, is that the net revenue, or is there a cost to that somewhere in this?
That's the renewable energy revenue that we get in.
Right, but there's a cost somewhere in this report to that. There's one question.
If I recall.
It's each power line,
It's-
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so
each
you have a
department-
cost to get that money. It's not 37,000, but there's a cost there. Just, that's what I'm asking.
I'd have to look more into
Yeah,
it.
And it's no big deal.
Yeah, I think
It's-
it'd be a good idea to
It's
just kind of bring it back to us.
$37,000, it's not the end of the world in this big budget, but
Yeah.
when this whole thing started, when I understood it, is we were buying credits
Mm-hmm.
to get a discount on the bill. And it was a net difference, and there was supposed to be a substantial savings. But we had to buy those credits up front.
I do believe it is 27%. I believe that's.
All right, so we'll bring it back next week and, or, well, actually, there is no meeting next week,
There is
am I
no meeting
correct?
next
But we can,
2 weeks.
we'll look into it more, we'll make sure about the
Yeah.
27%, we'll look at, we'll get
Yeah,
you
I just-
background on the process here. My assumption was that it was, when they did this process, like they're basically buying into the project and then it would offload credits moving forward.
And I think that's how it is now. I don't think we're buying credits each year. I think now it's just
essentially bought into the project,
you
we're an
bought into
investor in
the
the project,
project.
and then the project's gonna kick off credits for X amount of years, and that's how we kind of make the delta. That's what I assumed it was, but
And
let
that's
me.
what I've assumed too, and that's how it looks on paper when we get the bills, but we'll look into it.
Yeah, I saw checks going out. to buy
Yeah,
credits.
So let me look into it. We'll
It's
clear the
not a
decks.
big deal, it's just, I was trying to clarify, because all
No,
of this.
if there's money to be saved too,
Yeah.
and if, actually, I was supposed to, had to cancel a meeting with the person who helped design that, and was just wanted to talk about it, so we can get that meeting together. Actually, you all are probably the people that should have that meeting, so.
Okay.
Let's talk to Ebony, and, we can get that meeting in the books. Comes through here every few months, so.
It's, what's his name?
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Oh my gosh,
so-
I can't believe I'm keeping a brain. He's great.
Great. So he'll probably be able to give us a great rundown, and
Mr. Fortier has a real clear understanding of the whole thing, he was involved in that from the
Let's ask him.
He left.
He's not here.
He left.
That was the joke.
I do want to maybe ask if you can include in your, like, your summary, what their tax collection percentage is.
That sounds like a
for-
great idea. Mhm.
Just so we can kind of see, okay,
At this- yeah.
especially at the end of September, you can be like, okay, we've collected
Collect X amount, yeah.
50% or 60%, because you do see a lot of people paying their full year taxes on the September payment.
Yes,
So I just think it would give us a good idea, kind of judge it, as well as 2020, FY
yeah,
'24,
four.
so a 2-year comparison.
that's a great idea.
yeah, I think pulling out in the revenues, like some of the top lines, it's kind of like, how do we take some of these, the big ones, so it could be excise tax, and obviously there's not gonna be much, property tax revenue until the next report, but there'll
Yeah.
be a substantial amount in there, just kind of, some of those bigger pieces.
Yeah, you can base it off your AR.
Mhm.
Yep.
That's a great idea.
And I like the idea of just pulling out the departments, and again, and to your point, Steve, keep offering critiques, let's dial this in on, this is information design, right? There's ways that I like to consume information, and if I had my druthers, I'd just be in the actual board, clicking on each thing, finding, that's Nate and I do that.
Yeah, I think this year is a design year of
Yeah.
this product, is where I'm going.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, and Nate and I done this with economic research on job reports, and, hey, the top lines get drilled down, the department pieces, where they're at, and the quarterly one, too. Like, we're gonna get, next month's gonna actually be a quarterly update.
Okay.
So, do we want the monthlies to be a little more slimmed down, and here's what you get, and the quarterly is the bigger, full analysis, type pieces, or is it just, we keep updating the monthly, and we don't really think about the quarterly as a different part of the product? Which would be helpful from a design perspective and a labor perspective, but there's pushes and pulls there, so.
That's all I have, though, unless there's any other questions.
All right. No? Do you guys have anything? No? Okay, good. Thank you.
And then
Enjoy
we'll
your
meet
weekend.
in 2 weeks?
2 weeks, oh yes, September 20th.
We'll see everyone Monday.
That's
Oh,
true.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, get back in the